On today's episode, the Chicago Blackhawks got shellacked 6-1 to the Detroit Red Wings on Sunday night. I'll go over my takeaways from the game, the Blackhawks' latest roster moves, as well as forward Cole Guttman's season preview. All that and plenty more right here on Locked On Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? Welcome on in to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, thank you all for making the show your very first listen here to start off your day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can go and check me out on Twitter at JackBushman2, or you can go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Also, just a reminder, make sure to go and smash that like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. The start of the regular season is just over a week away, believe it or not, and you don't want to miss out on all the latest Blackhawks news and updates that get provided from yours truly here on Locked On Blackhawks. If you're listening to the audio version, make sure to go and download all of the latest episodes. You can also go and leave me a review if you want to as well on Spotify or on Apple Music. And I would greatly appreciate you spreading the word about the show as well. As I just mentioned, 8 days away from the Blackhawks season opener against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Go and tell a friend, go and tell a loved one, a family member. If you like what you're hearing on a daily basis, I would greatly appreciate you helping me out and help grow the show with the regular season just around the corner. All right, enough of that. Good afternoon, everyone. As always, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. And on Sunday night, since we last spoke, I left you all with a preview of their matchup on Sunday against the Detroit Red Wings. That was a 6 o'clock puck drop last night up at Little Caesars Arena. And yeah, things didn't go very well for the Chicago Blackhawks. It was ugly early and often for them. Kind of just a lot of sloppy play throughout the course of the game. They were severely outplayed, but at the same point in time, wasn't quite unexpected considering the amount of youth that they had in the lineup that they threw out there on the ice. And when I went through my preview of this matchup on Sunday, I figured with it being a back-to-back that they were going to go with some more of their, NHL regulars, if you will, that are going to be on the ice for the Blackhawks when they take on the Pittsburgh Penguins just 8 days from now. But they actually went with a majority of their prospects that were still left on the training camp roster. And my thoughts on that, I feel like this is something that I should probably keep into consideration moving forward with a lot of these guys, as the regular season is starting to inch closer and closer. A lot of these guys are going to be sent back to their junior club. I'm sure the Blackhawks front office wanted to give them another game of action to kind of see where they're at and just a little bit of a last kind of thought or a last reminder of where they're at in their development process. And also it gives them an opportunity to kind of experience what life is like as an NHLer on the road. So yeah, they ultimately went out and played most of their prospects that were left on the training camp roster. The only real NHLers that we saw the Blackhawks put on the ice last night was Connor Bedard, Lucas Reichel, Andreas Athanasiou played. Taylor Radish was out there as well. Jason Dickinson played on the fourth line, and then on the back end, they just had Nikita Zaitsev and Alex Vlasic. At the same time, though, I will say Detroit didn't have, their deepest lineup on the ice as well, but they did have some guys who are, a little bit more experienced and have multiple NHL seasons under their belts, like David Perron or a JT Compher. Michael Rasmussen even has been in the NHL for a couple of years now. And then on defense, they played Oli Mata. They also played Jeff Petrie and Shane Gostisbehere and had James Reimer in that. So they were certainly the deeper team, the more experienced team out there on the ice. And that's kind of what led to this game being so lopsided. As I mentioned, it was ugly early and often. The Red Wings had control of this game right out of the gate. The Blackhawks were on their heels. Poor Jackson Stauber was basically playing slapshot regatta in net, didn't get a whole lot of help from his team. Hawks went down 2-0 after the first period, gave up another 3 in the second. It was 5-0 after 40 minutes. They did avoid getting shut out, however, with a goal from 6'8" defenseman Louis Clevier. but that was all the Hawks offense could muster up on the night. So yeah, wound up being a 6-1 loss up at Little Caesars Arena. And because it was so lopsided, it honestly was hard to have like any real takeaways from this game. I mean, the Blackhawks just didn't look good. They didn't generate a whole lot of offense, stuck in their defensive zone for a ton of time. And even when they did get power play opportunities, the man advantage didn't look good either. They had a 5-on-3 in the third period where there was a lot of passiveness, not a lot of aggression and desire to shoot the puck. So yeah, just kind of a sloppy game as a whole from start to finish. A couple of things I do want to point out, though. Connor Bedard obviously was centering the top line for the Blackhawks last night, his second game of action. He was a little bit quieter for sure than he was in the preseason opener against the Wild, but he did still have some flashes. He did still have his bursts. The most noticeable move of the night, of course, was him absolutely walking former Red Wings first-round pick Simone Edvinsson with just a nasty behind-the-back move to create a little breakaway. Couldn't stuff the puck behind James Reimer, unfortunately, or else Bedard would have absolutely broken the internet. And it was a behind-the-back, he's driving up into the offensive zone, looks like he's going to curl and drag a wrister, and Edvinsson, I'm sure knowing the kind of release that Bedard has, went down to block the shot, which I do respect, but Bedard then goes behind his back like he's playing basketball or something. Oh my gosh, it was just another little flash of the special talents that this kid possesses. And I was also really impressed with, I guess mostly on the night, since he was on the ice when the Blackhawks were defending a lot, his defense doesn't get a lot of credit. And I think he's just so savvy and so smart out there. His hockey IQ, not only when he has the puck, is off the charts. When he doesn't have the puck, it's really high as well. A lot of good, just heads up little defensive plays, which I think kind of just gets, left under the radar a little bit, considering how talented he is offensively. So I've been really impressed with Connor Bedard's defensive awareness so far in his first two preseason games. I also thought Lukas Reichel had a decent night for what it was worth. He put together a couple of good rushes, some good shifts. He had one where he was fighting against, I don't know if it was a Red Wings NHL defenseman, but he ended up winning the one-on-one battle to get behind him. Wasn't able to kind of separate himself in order to create a breakaway opportunity, but a very heads-up play. 1-on-4 against the Red Wings, left by himself as the Hawks were going for a change. Heads-up play to kind of spin around the defender, buy himself some time, and then actually ended up setting up Taylor Radish for a one-timer that got stopped by Reimer. But a couple of good flashes from Lukas Reichel as well. And then I wanted to mention Wyatt Kaiser, I thought looked very comfortable on the right side. He played on the left side in his preseason debut with Seth Jones. Wound up playing on the right side here in the second game, which I think is something to keep an eye on throughout training camp, because the Blackhawks have a ton of left-handed defenseman depth, and it looks like Nikita Zaitsev is going to be in the lineup on a nightly basis on that third pairing as the right-handed defenseman, because they just don't have a lot of them in the system. The only right-handed defenseman at the professional level right now for the Blackhawks that isn't Seth Jones, Connor Murphy, or Nikita Zaitsev is Louis Crevier. So I do wonder if the Blackhawks are wanting to get Kaiser on the right side, maybe just to get Zaitsev out of the lineup, or just long-term because they don't have that many right-handed defensemen. But I thought he made some nice reads on the right-hand side. Again, was really heads up, I think, and keeping plays alive in the offensive zone, and looked comfortable out there using his backhand, which you're forced more to do, obviously, playing your offside. So a good showing from Wyatt Kaiser, even though he was stuck in his own end the whole night. That was just kind of a common theme for the entire Chicago Blackhawks team. I thought he did have a good little first debut on the right-hand side, though. I also wanted to be sure to provide you all with an update on Blackhawks forward Samuel Savoie, who unfortunately went crashing hard into the boards in that game on Saturday against the Minnesota Wild. Feet first, did not look good, was stretchered off the ice, obviously. The Gatineau Olympiques, his junior team made an announcement on Sunday morning that he underwent surgery on his right femur on Sunday morning. The good news is he is expected to make a full recovery. The Blackhawks said it was a successful surgery, so that's definitely great to hear. But the unfortunate side of, having what seems like a broken femur or something like that, had surgery on his femur, is that he's certainly going to be out for the season. It's a 6 to 9 month recovery timetable. So that ultimately means Samuel Savoie's, what was likely to be his final season of junior hockey, is probably over before it started, which is just so unfortunate, man. But I know a lot of us Blackhawks fans already have kind of been drawn to this kid, even though he's only played in a couple preseason games and has just been around for training camp and all that good stuff. He's just easy to root for, an easy guy to like, loves to mix it up, plays with a smile on his face, and plays with an edge, plays hard. And I think a lot of people respect the type of work ethic that he brings to the table. So, man, I know everyone's wishing the best for you, Sammy. Hoping that you'll be able to make a steady recovery these next few months, and hopefully we can see you on the ice sooner rather than later. It's obviously going to be at least 6 months, but hoping for a speedy recovery because he's an intriguing prospect for the Blackhawks. I know he doesn't have the offensive skill set or necessarily the ceiling that some of these other guys does, but the way that he's able to make an impact away from the puck is undeniable. So again, thoughts and prayers for Samuel Savoie after undergoing right femur surgery, hoping for a speedy recovery and to see him on the ice sometime soon. I also wanted to mention that the Blackhawks made a slew of roster moves, both following, or I guess actually ahead of their game on Sunday against the Red Wings, and then following the conclusion of that game. We saw Nolan Allen, Antti Sarella, Marcel, and Michael Tepley get assigned to Rockford before the start of Sunday's game. Not really anything surprising there, although Nolan Allen, I did mention a couple of times on the show, has been seemingly, jumping up the Blackhawks depth chart, and Luke Richardson spoke very highly of him, and it seemed like he was giving him opportunities to make the team out of camp. Now, that was always going to be a very tough uphill battle for Allen to climb. He really impressed, though, throughout training camp, but not surprised to see him going back to Rockford. It's still his first professional season. I think he could use, a little bit of experience down there, but I do think we're going to be seeing Nolan Allen making his NHL debut sometime in the not so distant future. The coaching staff loves him. He's already a grown man, and I think he's made a lot of significant developments in this past year to kind of take his game to another level. So wouldn't be surprised if he's the first defender called up from Rockford this season. And then after Sunday's game, we saw the Blackhawks send Ryder Rolston, Louis Crevier, Ethan Del Mastro, Philip Ruse, and Drew Comesso all to Rockford as well. So kind of just all the guys we expected to begin the season with the Ice Hogs, sending them down to kind of get gearing up for the start of the AHL season as well. And then the Blackhawks also had David Gust, Mike Hardman, and Brett Seney clear waivers this morning. They all had to go through waivers in order to be assigned to Rockford, and they did just that. They weren't claimed by any other NHL teams. So they're now with the Rockford Ice Hogs as well. And then the Blackhawks also sent Paul Ludwinski and Gavin Hayes back to their respective junior clubs after both of them played in that game on Sunday against the Red Wings. Ludwinski made a couple of bad giveaways, I thought, in that game. Hayes was actually one of the better offensively rated, analytically wise players for the Blackhawks in that game. So good showing for Hayes. But both of them, no surprise there, they're going back to junior. But I do think we could see each of them making their AHL debuts with Rockford after the conclusions of their junior season. All right, folks, there are my full takeaways from the Blackhawks. 6-1 loss to the Red Wings on Sunday night. Coming up in just a moment, it's time for me to get into another one of my Chicago Blackhawks season previews. But first, I got to talk to you all about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and also to level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. Plus, with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or else you'll get your money back. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. With all the parts you need at prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and to bring home that win. Again, that's ebaymotors.com. All right, we're back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Real quick, before carrying on, again, make sure to go and smash that like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not done so already. Help me drive the YouTube algorithm, the Google algorithm in this direction. I would greatly appreciate all your help. And also, make sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram as well. I mentioned a lot of cool clips and Blackhawks related content from the show is getting posted there. For those of you that were wondering, I am still doing the giveaway. I'm going to be working that out and hopefully announcing a winner this weekend. Make sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram, though. The Locked On Podcast Network is being a little difficult. I'm going to post a a story or something along those lines with an update regarding the giveaway. And I'm also going to be announcing the winner on the Locked On Blackhawks Instagram channel. So you don't want to miss out on that. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram. All right, segment 2, as you all know already, it's time to get into another one of my Chicago Blackhawks 2023-2024 season previews. And up now today is none other than 24-year-old forward Cole Guttman, who's entering his second professional season, but also the first, so it appears, to be a full-time NHLer. And by the way, I've already gone over season previews for Connor Bedard, Andreas Athanasiou, Taylor Hall, Philip Kurashev, Seth Jones, and Connor Murphy. If you want to get all caught up on those, you can easily do so on the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. But for Guttman, he was a former 6th-round pick for the Tampa Bay Lightning back in the 2017 NHL draft out of the United States Hockey League. He played 3 years in the USHL for the Dubuque Fighting Saints and then went on to play 4 years of college hockey with the University of Denver Pioneers. A really solid 4-year player was Guttman. Had double-digit goals in 3 of his 4 campaigns, and the one that he didn't, he had 8 goals in 23 games. And then, of course, he was the captain for the Pioneers in his senior season there, where they went on to win the national championship. But when the time came, he just never wound up inking his entry-level contract with the team that drafted him, the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that's when the Blackhawks kind of swept in and scooped him up as an unrestricted free agent last summer. And right from the get-go, right from his first appearance at, I think he was at the Tom Curver's Prospect Showcase. I want to say that he was. It was either then or right off the hop at Blackhawks training camp. He really made his presence felt. And I do believe it was the Tom Curver's Prospect Showcase, because I remember saying, well, this kid's 23 years old. He's a lot older than a majority of the competition and majority of the players that are out here on the ice as well. But still, there was no denying how good he looked at that time. And considering, a year ago, the Blackhawks forward prospect pool, at least the guys who were slated to begin the season with the Rockford Ice Hogs, wasn't really all that deep. So it was kind of easy to see Cole Guttman stand out. And then, he went on to have a very successful first half of his first professional campaign with the Ice Hogs, wound up potting 30 goals and 30 points, excuse me. If he potted 30 goals in 39 games, that would have been something, Cole Guttman tallied 30 points in his first 39 AHL games. And that's kind of what led to him getting that first NHL call-up down the stretch of the season. And he really wound up making the most of it. Only appeared in 14 games, though, unfortunately, due to a season-ending shoulder injury, which at the time, after, the Blackhawks dealt away everyone at the deadline, it felt like everyone that they were bringing in that was looking good was dropping like flies. Remember, Guttman gets hurt. Anders Bjork had a couple flashes, and then he winds up getting hurt. It was just kind of an unfortunate sequence of events for the Blackhawks there. But in those 14 games, Cole Guttman sure did make his presence felt. 4 goals, 2 assists for 6 points in those 14 games. Also had 26 shots on goal, 15.4 shooting percentage, which, you don't expect to repeat itself, but I do think Cole Guttman has the skills to be a good goal scorer. And also he only averaged 14 minutes and 34 seconds of time on ice. So to have that many shots on goal, that many points, to make his presence felt in kind of a smaller role was really impressive. And he also came out and did really well at the faceoff dot. He won 52.1% of his faceoffs, also added 8 block shots and 11 takeaways, just showing a really solid, well-rounded game. And that's what's led to, Cole Guttman expecting to be the Blackhawks' third-line center right out of the gate. That's kind of the projected role, if you will, that he's expected to have for the Blackhawks in his first full professional season. Davidson and Richardson have talked multiple times in the offseason how they want to give their youngsters an opportunity to play down the middle. So it seems like Guttman's going to be at least playing center right out of the gate, but that does have him penciled in as the third-line center for the Blackhawks behind, of course, both Connor Bedard and Lukas Reichel. But I also do think, as far as Guttman's role, I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the second power play unit with the goal-scoring ability that he has. And I also do think he could have a future on the penalty kill because of his speed, his work ethic, his selflessness. He's willing to block shots. And also because of his goal-scoring ability, he's shown that he can create breakaway opportunities and maybe get one for the Blackhawks while the opposing team has the man advantage. So I do think there's a lot of upside for Cole Guttman, even though he might not have, the offensive skill set as Lukas Reichel and Connor Bedard, obviously. I do think, being able to kind of be put in all situations, I think that's the upside of his game. I think there's a lot of versatility. He's got some Swiss Army knife in him. And because of that, I think Coach Luke Richardson is going to give him a lot of ice time this season. So I'm excited for that. And I'm also excited to see Guttman not only get those opportunities, but because the Blackhawks have a deeper forward group than they did last season, he could actually playing with some skill guys that can help him continue to develop his game offensively as well. So there is Cole Guttman's projected role for the Blackhawks this season. Coming up in just a minute, Hawks fans, don't go anywhere because I still have to get into some projected numbers for Guttman as well as the expectations that I have for him. But first, got to talk to you all about AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. And I gave AG1 a try a couple of years ago now was when they first sent me their products. And I literally use it every single day because I was so tired of taking so many supplements and I wanted just one single solution that supports my entire body and covers my nutritional basis every single day. And all I got to do is take AG1 right in the morning when I wake up, before I'm going to work out or before I'm going to record the show, or even if I'm just up and getting ready for work. It really does make me feel unstoppable in the morning. I'm ready to go and I have all of my nutritional bases covered. And thanks to AG1, covering my basis couldn't be any easier. I just mix one small scoop with water and I drink it first thing in the morning. And I also like it because it'll cost less than $3 per day, which is such a cheap and easy way to invest in both your health and your body, if you ask me. And if a comprehensive solution is what you need, then try AG1 and you'll get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D along with 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you need to do is go to drinkag1.com/NHL network. Again, that's drinkag1.com/NHL network to check it out right now. All right, back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, segment 3, picking up where I left off. Let's get into the expectations that I have for Cole Guttman in his second professional season, which I do think it is a little tough to kind of put a finger on the expectations that I have for him because he is still so fresh. And we only saw 14 games of him at the NHL level last year and only 39 games with the Rockford Ice Hogs. So he's still pretty new. We still don't exactly have a finger on precisely what type of player he's going to be. But that's why I think it's such a perfect season for a lot of these Chicago Blackhawks. And I guess this is my first expectation that I have for Cole Guttman is to make the most of this opportunity, just like he made the most of the one that he got last year. And regardless of being a veteran or being a youngster, both of them alike with this Blackhawks team where they're at right now, it's kind of a perfect situation for them all to be in. And that's why I've just called it a runway season. There's really no expectations around this Blackhawks team to take that next step in terms of the standings. It's really just all about development and figuring out what we have at this point in time. So for both veterans and youngsters alike, it feels like they're just getting they're getting handed the keys to a really good opportunity that they're just not going to get very often in the NHL, where there's just not a whole lot of winning pressure on your shoulders. That's not really what it's about for the Chicago Blackhawks this season. And I think for Cole Guttman, for a lot of youngsters, and even for veterans like Taylor Hall, as I've outlined, for Andreas Athanasiou, it's really important for these guys to make the most of this opportunity. And I mean, I'm not trying to take this away from Cole Guttman or any of the players. They obviously worked for this to get in this position, but it just feels like it's so important for Cole Guttman too, who's going to be 25 years old when the season comes to an end, by the way. It's really crucial that he goes pedal to the metal to make the most of this opportunity. And that high motor of his is what I think really makes him stand out. Not the biggest guy, not the fastest, but he's quick. He's flight on his feet, works hard along the boards, and he's just got that Energizer Bunny motor about him. So I would really like to see him play with that edge, play with that chip every single night. And I really would like to see him kind of emerge as a penalty killer or a defensive-minded guy that has a goal-scoring ability. It feels like that's the offensive attribute that's going to be the best for Cole Guttman, is the goal scoring. And that's what stood out to me, at least in the game on Saturday against the Wild, how he's able to find and generate space for himself in order to get a shot off. And we saw that a couple of times late last year as well. So I do think the goal scoring is going to be his best offensive attribute, but you can still be a good goal scorer in the bottom six while also providing other important while also playing more meaningful roles in other areas for Cole Guttman and still be a good goal scorer. So that's kind of where I'd like to see him take that next step, because I do think he has the ability to be a very successful penalty killer with the hard work and the speed and the way that he's able to play a grindy game at the same time while also having some really nice attributes. So those are kind of my expectations for Guttman. I know it's not a ton, but just come in and make the most of this opportunity. We're going to learn a lot about Cole Guttman, but as far as what would make this season a success in my mind, if he locks himself into being a future bottom six piece, I think that would absolutely make for a successful season as well. Like I said, just come in, work hard every night. I think the biggest thing that I think would make for a successful season out of Cole Guttman is if he becomes a fan favorite. And I know we only got to see him in 14 games last year, but he quickly became a fan favorite because of he kind of gave Blackhawks fans a little bit of a Brandon Hagel vibe at the beginning of his career. Not to compare those guys, but also kind of gave a vibe of what Sam Lafferty did very well for this Blackhawks team in his time here. It feels like Cole Guttman has the potential to be one of those guys that's respected by the fan base immensely. And if that happens, that would probably mean that it's a successful season for Cole Guttman. And I also think it's just important for him. I do think he has the ability to play center long term. But given the Blackhawks center depth, they got Frank Nazar, Oliver Moore. There's a whole lot of centers in the pipeline. But what makes Cole Guttman intriguing is those guys all have high offensive ceilings. That's not really what I think is going to make Cole Guttman special in the NHL level. Can he do some nice offensive things? Yeah, but I don't think that's what's going to make him. And I think that's what makes him unique compared to all the Blackhawks young centers in the system. So if he could figure out kind of his niche, I think is what I'm really looking for, then I think that would make for a successful season out of Cole Guttman. And I know a lot of this is probably vague to you listeners out there, but it's just hard to put down specific expectations and such when we just don't know a whole lot about Cole Guttman. We're going to be learning a lot about him together this year, but I'm excited because from what he showed us late last year and in his first bit of action in the preseason, looks like he has the ability, the talent, the skill to be a future piece of this puzzle here in Chicago. So I'm super excited for his first full NHL campaign to get underway. As far as the numbers that I'm putting down, I don't like doing this, but I do think it's a fun thing to do at the same time for the show. If Cole Guttman were to play 82 games for the Blackhawks, I have him penciled in at 17 goals, 18 assists for 35 points. And I wanted to get him up to that 20-goal plateau, but I do think that might be asking a little bit much out of him, especially if he's only going to be playing 13, 14 minutes a night down on that third line. But I think 35, 40 points is realistic for Cole Guttman. He's got good goal scoring ability. We'll see if the Blackhawks offense generates enough for him to get, close to 20 assists. But I'm expecting a very solid first full-time campaign for Cole Guttman up at the NHL level. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all for tuning into the show. Be sure to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube and to follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Go and follow me on Twitter at JackBushman2, or you could go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until tomorrow's episode, that's going to do it here for the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.